And I think anyone that went through boot camp, be it the Army or the Marine Corps, and I'm not sure about the Navy and the Air Force, during Vietnam, they were still punching, kicking, by your drill instructors, I'm sure, because, it was going on at Fort Jackson. Now, no one, got marched into the creek, but the difference between today's young person and us back then is they're a lot more informed. They know what's going on. We literally thought they had the power of life and death over us.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure if I would have died in boot camp, my parents would have said, well, you must have done something wrong. Yeah. They would not have sued or anything else.
They would take them to court.
Yeah, they would have said, well, he screwed up then, because, the Army must have had a reason to kill Tom. I wanted to kill him. I'm sure he gave him a good reason. So there wouldn't have been that say. And plus, there was no failure to train, and I've seen that because doing all the recruit psych evals over Parris Island, where we didn't even know if there was a psych at Fort Jackson. It was psychos. But here's the thing. They know this stuff today. They know how they can get it.
Yeah.
If you failed to train, you went to jail.
Right.
Now, there wasn't any playing around. You went to the animal farm, which was even worse than boot camp, or you went to jail. They didn't send you to talk to somebody. Right. So these kids today know this stuff, and they know that you can't do this and you can't do that. And I think that's the difference. The mystique is gone. We
had a fat boy platoon, as it was called. There were no euphemisms. It was fat boy platoon, slow learners platoon, and there was a motivational platoon. What would be an example of a woman recruit failing to train? What would they do exactly?
They just sit down and do nothing. They would literally, I was a drill instructor between 84 and 86, and then again from 87 to 1990. And during that time, women recruit training changed completely and totally. And women would, if they sit down on a foot locker, and they're told at the beginning of training or something, I don't know who tells them, somebody told them, they'd sit down on a foot locker and say, I'm not moving, I'm not doing it. No. I'm not. And then you'd have a recruit, they would say, oh, well, if I just act a little crazy, I'll get out of here. We had one who sat in a hallway, in a passageway, waiting to see the company commander, banging her head against the wall, the brick wall, and saying, my name is not Private So-and-so, my name is Susie Jones, my name is not Private So-and-so, and one would refuse to wear a green t-shirt because Jesus Christ wore green t-shirts, and she'd tell you that, or she saw Jesus driving by out on Page Field in his van, waving at her and telling her, don't march with that platoon!
Were these concocted excuses, or do you think they really were a little wacko?
You weren't allowed to make that determination.
99% of what I saw was...
As a drill instructor, you're taught that you are not allowed to make that determination. That's one of the things that they're taught as a safety catch now for drill instructors to protect themselves and to protect the recruits.
Yeah, and I'm sure over to us.
Yeah, if a recruit does anything like that, you're really not allowed to do anything other than send them to medical. Send them to the officer, the series officer, to be evaluated. Send them somewhere else. You're not allowed to do anything, although, oftentimes we would. There were major scream fests and IPT sessions and, that kind of thing.
How about physical brutality?
Amongst the women?
Yeah.
Well, okay, we're on tape here. We're talking about YouTube now. I can tell you that during the time that I was in the Marine Corps, as a drill instructor, it was constant. There was constant brutality of recruits against recruits amongst the women, especially when we started to get more women gang members into recruit training. There was the women against women recruit brutality, where they would literally give each other blanket parties because they were causing the platoon problem. And then there were the drill instructors who would do things like the front sight post drill, where you get the front sight post drilled into your head, and as a series chief drill instructor, I'd be walking around going, okay, I got a bad one on the team now. Who is she? Which one is she? And I'd have to figure it out. I'd have to ask the recruits, and of course the recruits are like anybody who's abused. They don't want to tattle on their abuser because they've been told if you tattle on your abuser, your favorite drill instructor, is going to go down, or you're going to get killed, or whatever. People who are going to be abusers are going to do the same thing that any child molester or anybody else is going to do. And that is the major problem, I think, with drill instructors being abusers. It is just like any other form of abuse. We weren't allowed to cuss. It was a big deal back then. You weren't allowed to say stinking even. Stinking was a big major deal. No stinking. You can't say, get that rifle off that stinking rack, recruit, and get that rack straightened out, and get down here on the deck right now and give me 20, or I'm going to have you up there so fast on that roof, shoveling rocks and tar, you're not going to know what
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So the F word was not.
No, you had to be very creative. That's why I said at the beginning of this class, you all don't realize how creative you are. You have to find all these creative ways not to beat a recruit, not to cuss at a recruit, not to abuse the recruit, and yet get the recruit to train.
Yeah, but see, when we were going through, us Vietnam guys, the only pat on the back we would get was out fucking standing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And everything else was derogatory.
That was a better word.
But they did tell us not to go home and cuss and say you learned it here.
Right.
And I never heard the F word so many times in my 18 years of life as I did in my first 18 minutes in the Army. So I just thought it was a word now that has become part of your
All
vocabulary.
forms of speech.
Yes. Yes.
And make no mistake about it, as much as you don't like to think about it, women drill instructors can be just as bad as the males and just as brutal. So now, brutality, that was one of the controversies. What was another controversy you felt was at issue here in this situation?
That you mean to address?
Yes,
In the book?
yes.
Well, the three that I addressed, aside from brutality, were the commandant's decision to come to Parris Island and the alcohol issue.
Yes, that was major.
Yeah. 'Cause, and I concluded that although McEwen had been drinking, that he was not under the influence when he took those guys into the drink. I've said that when I've spoken over there, and I've had some old timers come up to me. Oh, I was at Parris Island. I saw those sons of bitches marching by me, and the guy said McEwen could hardly stand up and all that. I mean, these are sea stories, I think, you know.
It was an excuse to be made.
Yeah.
It was a reason for it was a justification. It was a way to say it wasn't really the man. It wasn't really the fact that he was a Marine. He was
the
under
booze
the
talking.
influence.
Yeah.
Right.
So McEwen, he had to get his own attorney? Did the family appoint, enlist this
I think,
attorney?
to me, the most interesting chapter in the whole book was how McEwen's attorney came to be. But in a nutshell, what happened was that the Marine Corps was going to take care of McEwen. It looked like from the outset he was charged, following an inquest, with manslaughter, really, and some other very serious charges, suppression. He had a military lawyer, a lieutenant, and he had his brother-in-law, who was an inexperienced lawyer from Massachusetts. And so a group of judges in New York of Irish extraction got together and said, this guy needs a lawyer. And they designated, if you will, this fellow named Emil Zola Berman, who was an excellent trial lawyer in New York. And Berman saw the case as one of institutional oppression, if you will, or bias, and he took it free of charge, went down and represented McEwen without charge. And I asked McEwen's brother-in-law, Tom, I can't even think of his last name now. Anyway, I said, well, you know, what prompted these judges up in New York to do this? You know, they had nothing to do with this. And he said it was a tribal thing. It's a tribal thing. He said they're Irish, you know, and it was one of their own who was going to get ground up by the institutional.
And maybe a chance to fight Big Brother. I
Yeah.
mean,
Plus, as you
so
said,
you
it
want
was,
to be on the cutting edge of that.
Yeah.
Plus, it was a cause. A
plus,
cause.
plus it was, like you said, back then, it was mostly WASP,
Yeah.
and they were Catholic. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big,
There was that.